So guys, yeah, listen, been a bit of an up and down last couple of weeks for me personally, but obviously back into the swing of things now. Obviously, I've just come back from holiday, and it's hard to adjust, man, to getting back, and it's just difficult trying to get the timings right, in terms of what time I'm gonna stream, getting my rest as well because I haven't been getting too much rest, and yeah, it's just been mad. But yeah, obviously I'm back now, back into the full swing of things, and as I said, like, yeah, big up yourselves for always tuning in. Big up to Sham each and every time as well. And yeah, as I said, I'll be back, guys, as normal. Obviously the timings of my schedules and that as well might be a bit different this week. But yeah, obviously every day we back to normal and we keep the grind going. So yeah, big up yourselves, as I said, each and every time for tuning in. And yeah, as I said, man, good night, nice little break. But most importantly for me is that I'm back to work and we get this content out. And obviously, yeah, we keep working to achieve what I know this channel where I know this channel can go to. So yeah, big up yourselves, big up to Barbara Joseph as well. So yeah, big up yourselves for coming on and obviously tuning in. So guys, yeah, if you didn't know already, obviously I will be live as well at 5 o'clock PM today with Jonas. So yeah, make sure you guys tune in again and obviously come over and give us your support. But I thought, yeah, I had to do a little stream, Again, this stream ain't gonna be, for too long. It's just a quick little stream. Obviously, so I've got one at 5, as I said. But again, controversy surrounding Manchester United again, and obviously 3 players that you guys can see in the thumbnails, Alejandro Garnacho, Marcus Rashford, and Jadon Sancho. And all for different reasons, obviously in the headlines for what's happened over the last couple of days in terms of, in Garnacho's case, being pictured in an Aston Villa top with Rashford on the back. Marcus Rashford sitting down with a couple of Spanish YouTubers as well, which people are looking at now as him trying to engineer a move to Spain, whether it be Barca or Real Madrid. And obviously the Jadon Sancho, the news from Napoli president saying they're not going to pay what Jadon Sancho's wage demands are. So we're just going to get into a couple of the news there, guys. And as I said, if it's your first time in there, make sure you smash that like button, help the channel to grow. And obviously, as well, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe at GavGoesIn. So yeah, for me, speak about Alejandro Garnacho. And you know what makes me laugh with Garnacho, yeah, is that a lot of fans, I know, I had a lot of people in my chat as well telling me, why are you so harsh on Garnacho? And, why am I a hater of Garnacho as well? And you know what it is? I think sometimes you have to just let people talk, because a lot of people, they will see the light in the end, and I'm someone that, for a start, there ain't no player that I hate on. I just purely give my footballing opinion. And again, it's up to people to agree. It's up to people to disagree, But I'm always someone that, I'm here for footballing debate. I love football debate. Whether we agree on opinions or not, it's all about having that debate as long as it's constructive and, it's not personal. And that's what I think football should be about. Having your opinion, and if you believe in your opinion, fair enough, but let's debate it out. Big up to Saeed, big up to Agnes 14ish as well, and big up to Vupi as well. So yeah, guys, keep your questions coming in and let me know your thoughts. So the Alejandro Garnacho, with him being pictured in an Aston Villa top with Rashford on the back. The funny thing for me is that, big up Jay Richards as well. I'm someone that I had already given my views for, as anyone that's been watching my channel for a while, my views on Alejandro Garnacho has always stood firm. He was someone that was bigged up by this fan base because this fan base were just desperate to put the likes of Garnacho ahead of Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, because he obviously come through the youth, obviously was bought from Atletico Madrid, but this fan base adopt him as like one of their own. But because that was happening, this fan base was desperate to have Garnacho succeed, and at the expense of the likes of Sancho and Rashford, But I quickly saw Garnacho's attitude, and for me, his attitude for me has always been one of, it's all about me kind of thing, and then he believed in his own hype as well from this fan base, and then you look at the whole Ronaldo thing, he was desperate to be the next Ronaldo at the club. But the problem is with Garnacho is that the ability didn't reach the ego, and he was always someone that he coming at a time at United where United was struggling probably in the wide areas, and because he come there with his youthful exuberance, something a bit different, a lot of fans thought Garnacho, was the real deal. But again, someone like myself that's played football, that's coached, that has watched football for, over 30 years now. I feel I have a good vantage point to judge what I feel is a good player and what a good player isn't. And I looked at Garnacho, and the one thing that stood out for me was that he had a lot of endeavour, And as with young players, they have a lot of that, in terms of, always wanting to get in behind, make runs. Again, not surprised because he wants to try and make an impact into the team. But for me, the way that I see football is that I look at quality first and foremost, because quality will always come through in the end, and if you're someone that has the quality but doesn't have, what is perceived to be, the hard work on the pitch that a lot of fans like, for me, these things will come. But in terms of Garnacho, he had the work, you would say, in terms of the running in behind that people would perceive as being a positive, but the quality was never there, And, if you look at the overhead kick that he scored against Everton, great goal. But if we're being honest with you, he's never ever going to score that kind of goal again, because these things are like, freak of nature goals. And what I would say is that Garnacho has done a very good job at fooling the majority of the fan base to thinking that, he is this sort of superstar in the making. I'm hearing, I've heard people say he's got the biggest potential at United. Like, again, I don't know what these people are on, and it's nothing short of people not even understanding the game, or just trying to push an agenda out, because you can clearly see a player of Garnacho's level was never a player that was gonna, be a regular first team player at Man United or elsewhere in the league. Because if I go through all the wingers in this Premier League now, there isn't a winger that he comfortably starts over, and this is the problem. Man United have tried to invest in this player, and ultimately, this system doesn't suit him, and ultimately he's been found out as well. So for me, I'm not surprised at the fact that he's been taking pictures in an Aston Villa top, because again, his attitude has always been poor anyway. So many things you hear about Rashford's attitude or Sancho's attitude, which again are unfounded, But Garnacho has displayed an attitude ever since he's broken into the first team, that he thinks he's this kind of player that's gonna take United to the heights of, where they used to be. And he's got a stinking attitude, Garnacho, and I've always said it. You look at his brother as well online. His brother can't stop tweeting nonsense about Alejandro Garnacho, And again, someone like me, I've kind of been done with Garnacho for a while. Ever since I knew after the Europa League final that there's talk about him going, I've resigned myself to knowing that that United are finally moving on this player. And it's not a personal thing with Garnacho. He just ain't good. He just isn't good as what a lot of fans think he is. And I think for United to move forward, as I've always said, the likes of Bruno, Garnacho, Rashford, Højlund, Mount, Shaw, those players there, for all different reasons, need to be removed from the club, because they're players that divide the fan base, and the majority of those players are starting every game. And these players there, Rashford, Mount, Shaw, Garnacho, Højlund, and Bruno, they're the bulk of the problem at the club. because I don't care what anyone says. Those players there that I've mentioned, they're part of the biggest problems at the club in terms from a playing style and in terms of dividing the fan base. And if Man United want to move forward, they have to be removing the likes of those players for me. So again, I'm not really going to go too much into the Garnacho thing because fans that are a bit surprised that he's done that, why are you surprised? Because Garnacho's been showing you that he's about that. He's about disrespecting the club. He doesn't really care because again, he's not a Man United fan. He's someone that this fan base have invested in, but it was more of a case of them just trying to put him above Rashford and Sancho for various different reasons, as we know. So the fact that he's been pictured in a Man United top, in an Aston Villa top, you know, whether people say, it's a bit of banter or whatever, the disrespect is clear. And again, Garnacho knows what he's doing. People will say it's clever, but for me, it's obvious to what he's doing because he knows that the club need the transfer fee from his sale because it's pure profit. So what he's going to do is disrespect the club at his will, really, knowing that the club can't really sack him because if they sack him, then they have to pay him out and they're going to lose a transfer fee as well. So really and truly, let's be honest with you, Garnacho's got United by the balls, and again, it's another player that has the club by the balls because he knows the club rely on them getting rid of him to get the money in, and as I said, the club can't afford to to pay him off and let him go, and they can't afford to let his value drop even further because it's going to come to a point where United are going to have to just say, look, we'll accept that. This is the position that they put themselves in. And to think that, you've got Liverpool, who have just got 30 odd million for Jarrell Quansah, a guy that's barely played, 50 Premier League games, is mad to get 30 odd million. And Man United are struggling to get this guy out of the club at the moment. So, yeah, Man United are in all sorts of problems with their players. But nonetheless, Garnacho, for me, is one of the ones that definitely needs to be moved on. And the thing with Garnacho now, there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to happen. But the fee itself, I think United are going to have to take a loss on Garnacho because I'm hearing United wants 60 million. I mean, I don't understand 60 million for Garnacho. If I'm United, I'm just taking 30 mil, 30 million and just letting him go for me personally. But what I would say, for those fans that think either, it's not a big deal that Garnacho's done that, it's a bit of banter. What I would say, the standards have dropped and we know that anyway. So it's one of them things where if a lot of fans think that he hasn't done too much wrong, that's because they're from a generation, of this era now that think that he hasn't really done too much wrong. And again, it's the standards that are dropping because how I know the standards are dropped because I've never seen a Man United team this bad. And to think that, you've got the likes of Højlund and Garnacho that have been part of a front three, this is why the standards are at an all-time low for Man United. And for me, the quicker that United get rid of those players, as I've mentioned, the quicker that I can see the club going in a better direction. So yeah, the Garnacho thing for me, as I said, do I think he's disrespected the club? Of course he has, because it's just common sense to not do that because a fan base like the one that Man United have, if you're going to wear another team's top and you're rumoured to be leaving, how else do you expect fans to react? And for me, it was dumb decision making from Garnacho. It was immature what he's done. And the fact that he's actually posted it, it just shows you that he don't give a damn about the club. So you have to get rid of him ASAP. But as we know with Man United, they take forever to go and get a deal done. But yeah, as I said, Garnacho knows what he's doing. He's done it on purpose. And the best thing now is for him to part ways with the club. And he knows that. And now he's forcing Man United's hand. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that one, really. So, what he's done there is idiotic. And let's hope that, Man United are are moving him on for sure. Guys, listen up. I will get back to your chats. I'm just gonna get through what I've got to get through, and then I said I will get back to your chats. Big up yourselves for coming through, guys. There's 20 of you in there watching. You know, doesn't take too much to smash that like button. Obviously, help the channel to grow. And again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe as well. And big up yourselves for coming on and contributing to the channel. So, Marcus Rashford, you know, obviously a lot's been written about Marcus Rashford. Obviously sitting down with a couple of Spanish YouTubers, which has been reported. Obviously himself trying to engineer a move to Spain. Again with Rashford, you know, Rashford's a funny one because, you know, just like with Garnacho, Rashford was someone that was trying to, you know, and I always bring it back to Anthony Martial, you know, because the thing with Marcus Rashford is that Rashford was being held up as someone that that was they were trying to put him above Anthony Martial. Now, if anyone knows football, you would know that Anthony Martial was by far a better footballer than Marcus Rashford. But the problem is, Marcus Rashford, because he's from Manchester, you know, this fan base are just hell-bent on obviously making sure that he's at the forefront of anything Man United. Now, as I mentioned with Garnacho, because Garnacho has come through the youth, or as I said, they bought him from Atletico, they've tried to put Garnacho ahead of Sancho and even now Marcus Rashford because the fan base have actually realised that Rashford wasn't the player that they thought he was going to be. And this is the problem because, you know, if you just watch football properly, you would know that Rashford was never meant to be the player that we're seeing now in terms of his popularity. You know what I mean? And the quality of Rashford was really never there. Again, he was someone that come through the youth, you know, and he come there with a, you know what I mean, with a enthusiasm for the game. And obviously since his fame, you know, obviously his football career has diminished in the sense of his ability and you might say his hunger as well. You know, and I think with Rashford, you know, a move for him is what is best needed for himself and for the club. And obviously people are looking at him now, sitting down with Spanish YouTubers, which, again, I don't really have a problem with. Because at the end of the day, you can sit down with whoever you want, you know. But people are looking at it as if he's trying to engineer a move to Spain. But for me, as I said, it's not really important what Rashford does, really. Because I think if Rashford knows deep down, his time at Man United has come to an end. You know, Man United need to be moving in a different direction. And what I would say with Rashford is that I think for himself he needs a move because the limelight on him, you know, all the time must not be good for his career. You know, must not be good for, you know, his well-being as well. Because it's not personal with Rashford. Rashford just isn't the player that many of these fans predicted. You know, and as I said, someone like myself, I saw this when he first broke through. You know, the amount of times people were trying to say he was better than Martial based on what really? Because he wasn't on quality, and then they said he got more numbers than Martial, and then now all of a sudden Rashford's now surplus to requirements. But again, they were trying to push Garnacho in ahead of him, and now you're seeing Rashford trying to angle for a move. You know, he was given the big contracts as well. And now it's proven difficult to try and get rid of a player that was never worth the wage in the first place, you know. And what I would say with Rashford is that just like Garnacho, I don't blame Rashford himself. I blame the fans that thought he was at the level of an Mbappe, people were saying. And let's be honest with you, he really is no better than Anthony Gordon. And that's not to say that Gordon isn't good. But if we look at Gordon's a good Premiership player. And the way that Rashford gets talked about as if he's a world beater, he's not better than... Is he really better than Anthony Gordon? That's the question, you know? And for himself to be trying to get a move to Barcelona, which is his dream, listen, I wish him all the best, man, if he does get a move to Barcelona or to Real Madrid. I don't see it happening. But... again, it's because of his status that he has in the game, which is why people are talking about him being, or why he's being mentioned at that kind of level, you know, for me. But yeah, him doing interviews with Spanish YouTubers, I couldn't really give a damn if I'm honest. You know, it don't make not one bit of difference to his situation because at the end of the day, it's very clear that him and Amarim don't get on. You know, um, and it's very clear that he needs to move on. And again, he's going to be pure profit. So it's a good deal for the club, and it's a good deal for Rashford himself. Obviously, he's going to have to take a wage cut if he wants to move. If he wants to move anywhere, because I don't see any club other than Saudi paying the wages that he's on at Man United. And I think you're going to find out if he truly wants to play football, or if he's just doing it just for the popularity and the fame. You know, I mean, in terms of Rashford's level, I think Rashford's a good player, but I don't think he's special. I don't think he's one of the best in Europe. I don't. I just think he's a good player, and that's it. And maybe at a different club, you know, you might see Rashford thriving in a different system. But it's very clear the likes of him and Garnacho don't suit this system, you know. And again, this system for me isn't my favoured. But at this moment in time, both players don't suit a system in where the left 10 position is a number 10 and it's not a winger, with a winger's formation or a winger's strength. So yeah, for me, both players need to be moved on. And the fact that he's doing interviews with Spanish YouTubers, again, people are going to take it in different ways. You know, I choose to look at it as, you know, he's just sitting down with YouTubers because he wants to, not because he's trying to get, you know, engineer a move. Again, he can do what he wants, but I think what's clear is that he does need to move on, and the club need to move on from him. You know, and then we go into Jadon Sancho. So for me, Sancho a bit different because again, I'm someone that I believe in the quality of Jadon Sancho. You know, I think I look at wingers in today's football, and he's one of the very few wingers with a lot of quality. You know, and what I've said before on Jadon Sancho is that for me, he gets unfair criticism in the sense of people look at wingers now in the game and assume that Sancho has to do exactly what a lot of wingers do, you know. And this is why the game's gone, because if we look at, for instance, I'll give you a Noni Madueke. He's a prime example. Noni Madueke at every opportunity wants to take on his fullback, you know. Whether it's with quality or not, he wants to take on his fullback at every opportunity. Someone like Sancho, he's never going to take his man on down the line because the way Sancho plays is that Sancho likes to link with the front man and play the 1-2s and get in behind the defender that way, you know. He's someone that has very good ball manipulation as well. And he's someone that, in terms of his close control, you know, and his ball retention, you know, a lot of people don't seem to understand the game and realise that, you know, ball retention is massive in football, you know. And too many wingers now, they don't really care about the ball retention. Their thing is get the ball out their feet, put it down the line, and try and get a crossing, you know. And regardless of how good the cross is, you know, you're turning the ball over each and every time. So when I watch Sancho, you know, as I say, he's one of the very few wide players out there that wants to keep the ball, you know, keep recycling the ball. And this is why I think someone like him, he thrives in this system right now, with the three at the back playing as a left 10. But it's quite clear that he doesn't really want to come back to the club, in my opinion. You know, I'd like him to come back to the club if he could have a word with Jason Wilcox, you know, Ineos, and see how he can be reintegrated back into the team. But yeah, so he's someone that I want to still have at the club, but obviously it's looking unlikely that's going to happen. But obviously there's been rumours that, you know, Napoli have rejected his contract offer, you know, from what his wages are on at the moment. And I see a lot of people, you know, a bit unhappy with that, or a lot of people are saying that he's greedy, he's selfish. And the funny thing is that he's not greedy or selfish, he's smart, because he's got 1 year left on his contract, you know. The way the club have treated him in terms of the shirt number, you know, not giving him the number 7, but then, yeah, obviously Ronaldo comes, obviously Ronaldo's Ronaldo, come back and got the 7. And then when Ronaldo, or Cavani had the 7, should I say, and then Ronaldo had the 7, and then you're giving it to Mason Mount, yeah. So that's the first thing, because let's get it right. When Sancho first come in, you know, he was the big name. the big name, the big summer signing, and he wore 7 at Dortmund. A good show of faith with Sancho should have been him getting the number 7 shirt. The fact that the club never done that, is a disgrace in my opinion. And then the club never provided the platform for Sancho to succeed, because you don't bring in a player for that amount of money and don't provide the platform for them to succeed. The same thing happened to Paul Pogba, the same thing happened to many other players. And for me, um, the fact that he's been made the scapegoat, obviously I'm not going to go into the whole Ten Hag debate with him and Sancho. My opinion on that is that Sancho had every right to say what he said. I don't care what anyone says, because if you've got a manager calling you out and you know it's not true, as a man, you have to back your own corner. So I have no problem with Sancho coming out and saying what he said, because I would have done exactly the same thing. All of these fans that said that Sancho was out of order to come out and say what he said. Again, you must be one of them fans that just like to just lay down and take shit from other people. And the fact that Sancho come out and gave his side, I rate that, because there's too many. I think there's too many players probably out there that would have just accepted it and just said, yeah, the manager's right. And I know myself, I would have just come out and said exactly the same thing that Sancho said. If anything, I probably would have done even worse. I would have just called the manager out, and let him explain himself, regardless. Because there's one thing, a manager chatting rubbish, but then your career will get tarnished by other people believing what a manager has said, which ain't even true. So I have no problem with Sancho coming out against Ten Hag and saying what he said. But in terms of Sancho himself, could he have done more at Man United? Of course he could have, but was the platform there for him to succeed? No, it wasn't. And then to think that we have to watch a Man United front three of Garnacho, Rasmus Højlund, Bruno Fernandes, to think that Sancho wasn't given a proper chance is madness, But obviously there's rumours that obviously the contract wage, the wage that's on offer at Napoli, um, um, the wage at Napoli isn't suitable for what Napoli want to pay Sancho. Sancho's always obviously going to do that. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and a day Man United gave him that contract, and he'd be a fool to not obviously, sit tight and get that money. Anyone would do the same thing. So I'm not going to sit here and blame Sancho for that. If I'm Man United, I'll just reintegrate him back into the team, regardless of how much money he's on, and see what he can do for the next 6 months. And if it's the next 6 months, he shows and proves, what everyone saw in him, then you're laughing, because you're going to get a very good player. And again, if he doesn't, pull up any trees, then again, move him on. But if I'm Sancho, I'm sitting tight, because you've got 1 year left. You can leave on a free. At the day, he's gonna want to get his money, and you can't really blame him for actually doing that. If any European club comes in and says they want to pay anything near to what United are paying, then he's obviously going to go if the opportunity is there. But at the end of the day, he's not going to take a wage cut, and why should he? Because personally, I wouldn't do that. And I've seen a lot of fans, getting onto Sancho's back, saying that he's greedy and he's selfish. But put yourself in Sancho's shoes. Are you going to go and take a wage cut, knowing, or go to another club on a permanent and let them pay you less money, when you know when you know in a year's time you can leave on a free, and the next club you sign for, you'll be getting a massive sign-on fee? You're obviously going to go and take that. So a lot of fans that think that Sancho's being greedy, are a lot of fans that really are not really looking at the bigger picture, And as I said, my first thing for me would be bringing Sancho back, and integrating him back into the squad. Whether that's going to happen or not is unlikely. But at this moment in time, as I said, Sancho's well within his rights to stay where he is. And if he's going to run down his contract, again, Man United only have themselves to blame, because as a club, they should have treated Sancho the way that he should have been treated, coming in as a big name signing and not making him feel alienated within the club. And again, yeah, if he's on that contract, um, yeah, he's gonna obviously sit tight, and you can't really blame him, to be honest with you. Guys, come on, there's 24 of you in here and only 8 likes. Come on, smash the like button. Only one press of the button. If you're enjoying the content, just smash that like button, guys. Obviously, help the channel to grow. And again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel at GavGoesIn. And guys, give me your comments. As I said, if you agree with me on Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, and Marcus Rashford, let me know in the comments. And again, if you do agree, then let me know also as well. Big up yourselves. So to go back to some of the comments from earlier. So big up to Saeed. Saeed says, do you think Man United should sign Manion? 100%. You know, Mike Manion for me is one of the best keepers in the world. You know, and for me, I think if I look at Andre Onana, you know, I know Onana gets a lot of criticism. You know, I don't think Onana is as bad as what a lot of fans make him out to be. You know, again, I'm not a keeper, but I don't think he's as bad. I don't think he's the greatest, don't get me wrong. But getting rid of Onana is not going to be easy. That's what I will say. But Mike Manion, obviously, he's available for, I would say, about 15 million. If you can get Mike Manion in, you know, who's, as I said, one of the best keepers in the world for me, and then try and get rid of Onana or let him go on loan somewhere, then that would be great business. But to answer your question, Saeed, do I think United should sign Mike Manion? 100% I do. You know, very good keeper. And the fact that Chelsea didn't stump up enough money to get him, I think it shows me that Chelsea didn't really want him. Because if Chelsea really wanted him, then they could have got that deal over the line. But it shows me that they didn't really want him that badly. But again, for me, I'll definitely sign him. Yeah, big up, man. Saeed says Liverpool sold him for the same money that got Frimpong, who is one of the best wing backs in the world. Oh, so you're talking about Jarell Quansah. So again, yeah, Jarell Quansah's gone to Bayer Leverkusen, I think, for 30 odd million. I think if I'm right in saying, didn't he go for roughly the same price as Ryan Cherky went to Man City for, which is actually absolutely crazy, you know. And again, the way that Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea sell their players for money, you know, is absolutely ridiculous, man. How they can get such good prices for players that are not regulars, you know. And again, yeah, they've if we're looking at Frimpong, Liverpool technically have paid nothing for Frimpong because they're paying Frimpong's fee over 3 installments, you know, of 10 million a season, and the first 10 million they got that from the Trent deal, so they've paid literally nothing for Frimpong, which is crazy. And as I said, the way that these clubs sell their players, and Man United can't even get 30 odd million for the likes of a Garnacho, is madness, you know. But it is. So Arnav Tapper says, should United sign a new goalkeeper? Yeah, I mean, listen. I think it's obvious that United are looking at another goalkeeper. I don't think it's as critical as other positions, personally. I think Man United need to, you know, if I'm looking at sales, Man United need to get rid of Garnacho and Højlund first and foremost. The Bruno Fernandes one, I've parked here at the moment because I just don't understand a club, how they've turned down 100 million for a player turning 31, doesn't suit the system, and he's overrated. So I'm going to park the Bruno Fernandes one at the moment, but he needs to go, you know, but that's looking like a next year thing now. But Garnacho, Højlund first and foremost. Then you've got the likes of Luke Shaw and Mason Mount. And I put Onana in that bracket with Luke Shaw and Mason Mount. Someone that hasn't been there for as long as Luke Shaw, has been there for about the same time as Mason Mount. And both players for me have to go. But again, I think United... guys, sorry, just reading some news. If anyone knows Rooney Bargaji from Copenhagen going to Barcelona, you know, and very good signing from Barcelona. So you're going to have Bargaji trying to battle it out with Lamine Yamal for a start. And Rooney Bargaji is a very good player. Very, very good player. You know, left-footed, you know, inverted. So, yeah, great deal at 2 million as well from Copenhagen. So, yeah, very good deal for Barcelona. And obviously, they're getting Nico Williams in as well. So, yeah, they're making some smart signings, Barcelona. So yeah, so United should sign a keeper, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think personally it should be at the forefront of Man United's thinking. I do think that Man United should be looking at getting rid of the likes of, I'll say, Garnacho and Højlund first and foremost, and then you look at Mount and you look at Luke Shaw, and then Onana comes into question there, you know. But big up to Arnav. Sham says Onana has been linked to Monaco. Get rid of him and bring in Martinez, who wants to play for United. So I heard that the Onana to Monaco wasn't true. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. But for me, yeah, Martinez is a great keeper. I think the fee that Martinez, that Aston Villa will be looking at, they're looking at probably like 40 million. You know, their first choice goalkeeper, World Cup winner, you know, one of the best keepers in the world. You can see why they would be asking for that amount of money. But for me, if United could get Martinez for 20 million, 25 mil, you know, I think that'd be a great deal for the club. But what I would say is getting Onana at the club ain't going to be easy because I think he's still got, what, 2 or 3 years left on his deal. You know, he's gonna believe that he can be United's number one. And unless a club comes in with the money for Onana and the club just accept the bid, then I can't see him being moved anywhere. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about that. Mohammed says, do you think Garnacho will get a call up for Argentina in World Cup 26? If I'm honest with you, he shouldn't, because if I look at the attackers that Argentina have coming through now, they're all better than him. You know, you've got Franco Mastantuono, obviously recent Real Madrid signing. He'll be in there. You'd expect. You've got Claudio Echeverri at Man City now as well. You know, he'll be fancying his chances getting in that squad. That's already two of the attackers, the young ones coming through. You've got Thiago Almada as well at Lyon. You know, he'd fancy his chances in the squad. And that's not even mentioning, obviously, Messi. Obviously, his last World Cup, you'd think, in those attacking positions. You got Dybala, Lautaro Martinez. Who else is there? There's probably a few others. I think Angel Correa just recently left Atletico Madrid. So there's loads of players that are vying for the attacking midfield position. So Garnacho isn't even a regular for Argentina anyway. So do I see him getting called up? Personally, I don't, because I think there's too many attackers that are ahead of him in that Argentina squad. I think for him, he's going to need to do something unbelievable for him to even get a call up. And again, if he stays at Man United, which is unlikely, he's definitely not going to get any game time, I believe, to force his way into that squad. So to answer your question, do I think he gets a call up to Argentina in the World Cup 26? With what Argentina have to pick from, you know, I don't believe he does. You know, and there's probably other players that I've not even mentioned as well, you know. In which club do you think Garnacho suits the best? I think he would, like, any team that wants to play with direct wingers. You know, obviously that's the kind of profile player he is. I think the problem that Garnacho has is that he isn't, like, I mean, if you look at, there's talk about him going to Napoli. Like, Napoli have an opening right there because obviously Kvaratskhelia is not there no more, and they would need a left winger. So you'd think that he goes there and starts, but if Napoli get a left winger, you know, Garnacho doesn't automatically start ahead of them, ahead of a left winger if they go and buy one, because I just don't rate Garnacho that highly. I don't think he's that good. I think he's someone that, you know, he's an impact sub for me. But for some reason, he's been put into conversations as if he's potentially one of the best youngsters in the game, which is clearly not, you know. So, yeah, it's very hard to see what team he kind of starts for or who he suits. I know there's been talk about Aston Villa. I look at Aston Villa's team now. They haven't really got a left winger, you know. Rashford's has obviously gone back. I mean, Morgan Rogers for me is a starter, but he plays in the 10. Asensio, I think, has gone back as well. And then you've got Leon Bailey, who plays on the right. So yeah, they probably actually need a left winger. So you probably look at Garnacho and see that there's a spot there for him. But again, if Villa go and buy someone and then they bring in Garnacho as well, you'd have to believe that Garnacho isn't better than that player. So yeah, it's hard to say who he starts for, but any team that wants to play with direct wingers, obviously that's his style of play. So yeah, you could say any team that wants to play with direct wingers, but whether he starts or not is a different story, you know. So Mohammed says we should sign AC Milan players because they aren't in Champions League. Yeah, listen, I 100% agree. Man United should sign Teo Hernandez for me, definitely. I mean, Teo Hernandez is one of the best left backs in Europe for me right now, and the fact that he's looking like he's going to Al Hilal, and there's been no sort of takers in Europe is mad. You know, I can't believe that there's not one European club that have actually inquired. And again, I think people are looking at, you know, there's been reports, obviously, about his personal life, which is why clubs don't really want to go in for him, you know. But for me, I'm just surprised there isn't any takers for Teo Hernandez. So he's one, you know, obviously Reinders has gone Man City. Mike Manion, someone we've already spoken about. Rafael Leao is a no-go. Again, he's going to cost 109 million from what AC Milan have reported to say. So I look at Mike Manion, Teo Hernandez definitely as the two, I would say. And the fact that there's no other takers is surprising, but you know, who knows, man. It could all change after this Club World Cup is finished. Who knows? So Saeed says, great question, Saeed says, do you think we should get Vissa from Brentford? You know what, yeah? I don't understand why, you know, and I'm hearing it because of his age, you know. But I don't understand why there hasn't been any interest in Vissa. Because Vissa, for me, if we're looking, you know, outside of Erling Haaland and Isak as probably the two top strikers in the league, the next bracket of strikers, you've got Vissa, you've got Mateta. For me, Joshua Zirkzee is there, but he's not playing as a striker. Vissa, Mateta in the league. Who else is there? Probably like the Ollie Watkins, those kind of strikers. They're the next batch from Isak and Haaland as the two top strikers in the league. So the fact that Vissa hasn't been signed is mad. And I think a lot of clubs are missing a trick with the Vissa and Mbeumo, Hobbs and Shaw link up. Because if you was to offer, I don't know, 80 to 90 million, even 100 million to get Vissa and Mbeumo, you're getting two players that know each other, know each other's game, that have proven that they can score goals in this league. And if you get them into your team, you're laughing, you know. And I know people might say, but you're giving 100 million to Brentford, but you're getting two players that are Premier League proven and that are going to improve your team. So for me, Man United are trying to get Mbeumo. I don't know why there hasn't been any inquiries about Vissa also, because you're going to get Vissa and Mbeumo, two players in that are instantly going to improve your attack. And why there hasn't been any talk about Vissa as well is surprising, but I'm hearing it's because of his age, which is madness. But yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? So Mohammed says, we already had Dean Henderson in 2019. If we kept him, we wouldn't have that many problems. I don't agree. I mean, Dean Henderson was getting paid 120 grand a week to be a number two, which is madness. I've never heard of a number two getting paid that amount of money to sit on the bench. And yeah, Man United were right to get rid of Johan Vissa for sure. For me, Dean Henderson, sorry, for sure. But to say that United should have kept him, I don't agree, Mohammed. You know, Man United were right to get rid of Dean Henderson. The fact that he's performing at Palace now, yeah, well done to him. You know, obviously winning the FA Cup as well. But yeah, there's no way that Man United should have kept him. No way. And again, it's things like this that United need to move on from. And for me, the fact that he's performing well now is good for him. But as a keeper, an all-round keeper, I think he's a very good shot stopper. But again, a lot of keepers in this league are good shot stoppers. But in terms of the ball at his feet, yeah, he's pretty poor with the ball at his feet. So yeah, I think Man United were right getting rid of Dean Henderson for sure, man. Sai says Alvarez or again, Julian Alvarez, another attacker that's going to be in the squad. So yeah, Alvarez or Martinez start over Garnacho. But again, you're looking at different profiles. So Alvarez and Martinez are more number 9s, number 10s that will start for Argentina in those positions. Garnacho will play out wide. But the fact of the matter is, Argentina have a lot of attackers that they will have in their squad, which is why Garnacho will have a tough time getting in the squad, because there's a lot of players like Alvarez and Martinez will definitely be in the squad if they're fit. Then you've got Mastantuono and Echeverri, who are the next up-and-coming attacking midfielders. You'd expect them to be in the squad. Obviously, Messi, the captain. And then you've got Paulo Dybala. He might be in there as well and should be. I think Di Maria might have retired. But you've got a lot of attackers that can go in the Argentina squad at the expense of Garnacho. So this is why he'll have a tough time getting into that squad, because A, he's not good enough, and B, there's a lot of attackers to choose from. So, yeah. Mohammed says, do you think Ten Hag will get Champions League next season at Leverkusen? I expect Ten Hag to get Champions League with Leverkusen, because although they're losing, their best player, they've lost their best player in Florian Wirtz, the manager and Xabi Alonso, captain Jonathan Tah, and Jeremy Frimpong. I think in that league there, the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich are definitely going to be there. And then you've got Leverkusen, Dortmund and Leipzig you'd expect to be the challengers for second and third. So I expect Leverkusen to get Champions League football, but do I expect Leverkusen to win the Bundesliga with Ten Hag in charge? I don't. So, yeah, but he should get Champions League. And if he doesn't, they have to sack him. So yeah, that's what I will say on Ten Hag. So Syed says Chris Wood maybe. Not sure about Chris Wood in that one. So Walton, Mateta, Eze, Rogers, and Gibbs White are in Europe, so they will probably don't join. So Baleba seems ideal. Listen, Carlos Baleba should be the ideal target for United in midfield, as I keep saying. Left-footed, has the balance, tenacious, good on the ball, and he's press resistant as well. So he should be made the number 1 midfielder for Man United, as I keep saying. So I'm not really going to go too much into it again. But, yeah, they've got some... Palace have got Walton, Mateta, Eze, and obviously Mark Guehi. You've got 4 players there that are highly sought after, or should be highly sought after, from a lot of Premier League teams, because they're 4 of their best players. But getting them out of Palace now is going to be difficult, because Palace are in Europe as well. Even Newcastle wanted Mark Guehi, and they were quoted 70 million. Well, I think 70 million bid was put in, and Palace still said no. So to think that Walton, Mateta and Eze, I think Mateta might have 1 year left on his contract, so he might go for slightly less. Eze is going to cost about 70 mil, I believe, as well, if they get rid of him. And the same with Walton. I think he might cost more than that. So getting them out of Palace is going to be very difficult. Morgan Rogers, again, as a player, I rate him very highly. But getting him out of Villa, you're looking at 60 or 70 million again. And then Gibbs White, again, is playing in Europe. You're looking at about 50 to 60 million for him as well. So, yeah, all those players you've mentioned, Mohammed, they're going to be very tough deals to do for me, And as I said, I think, yeah, you're going to... I think you'll see the majority of those players stay at their clubs, in my opinion. But, yeah, definitely 5 or 6 in Baleba, 6 very good players that a lot of the top teams will be looking at. But whether they can get them remains to be seen, which is going to be difficult. So, yeah. But guys, listen up. Big up yourselves for coming on. Only meant to be a quick stream, but obviously been going for 50 minutes now. Obviously, there's 17 of you in there, you know, and 9 likes. 19 of you, sorry, and 9 likes. Guys, smash the like button. Let's at least try and get to 10. And again, if you enjoyed the stream, make sure you subscribe to my channel at GavGoesIn. I'm going to be back, guys, at 5 o'clock with Jonas. So we're going to get into the transfer window so far. We're going to talk about the Club World Cup as well. And again, guys, I haven't been watching the Club World Cup, so I'm hoping Jonas has been watching so he can let me know what's been going down. Obviously, I've seen a couple of the results, you know, but I haven't really been watching. I think I caught a glimpse of one game, which was the Juventus game against Wydad Casablanca. Kenan Yildiz, what a player, you know, another player that is that's going to be hard to get. You know, he's a very good player, Turkish international. But I caught a bit of that game. But I think they ran out what 4 or 5-1 winners in that game. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that and obviously just general football news as well. So and obviously his team Liverpool finally getting the Florian Wirtz deal over the line as well, and the Kirkes looking like it's wrapping up as well. So yeah, guys, make sure you join us at 5 p.m. today. Obviously on my channel, and again, make sure you keep bringing in your comments, guys, and yeah, make sure you keep interacting as well. So big up to all the mods for coming on each and every time. Guys, if you're a newcomer as well, as I say, big up yourself for contributing to the channel. And again, smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I'm going to catch you guys back at 5. Take it easy.